Hello and welcome. It is episode number 19, the Hilarious Humanitarians podcast. And today we have a special guest, Sloan Steele. You know her as I am Sloan Steele on Instagram. Hello.
Hello. I didn't know if I was supposed to jump in or not.
I know, right? Well, I guess, Deanna, if people are just tuning in for the first time, you can introduce yourself too. I had an agenda and I already messed up on the agenda.
Perfect. I love it.
Deanna. Hey, guys. Deanna Silverman, licensed clinical social worker.
All right. And I am Frances Echevarria, LMFT. So today we have the topic of how your childhood may have messed up your dating life.
Oh,
people just got really real and were like, I don't know if I want to listen to this right now.
I'm squirming right now.
We did have a lot of feedback off of our dating help, so we thought we'd jump into this a little more. So to give you an idea of what we've got ahead, we are going to talk a little bit about something called attachment theory, also how your history it's related to your childhood, and then how those things express themselves in your dating life. And Sloan, I hear you have some stories.
I do. I definitely do. From K through 12, I have stories leading up to where I am today. It's been quite a journey.
We're also going to tell you where you can find out how to figure out your attachment style, which me and Deanna were having some fun taking the test on that. That's eye-opening.
Sloan took it too. And did I tell you, Frances, that I took it twice?
You did. And if I wouldn't have had so many clients, I wanted to take it like pre-therapy, Frances.
Yes, that's what I did. Yeah, that's what I did. I took it as pre-married Deanna. I just got into the mindset of like wild ass Deanna single, like very commitment phobe. And then I stepped into I'm married and I've worked on myself, and the results greatly varied. It was really interesting.
See, I have like work in progress, and I didn't even bother to take the early one because it would just said hot mess. Please see a psychiatrist. So, but we'll tell you how to work on your attachment style too. But let's start. I mean, you know Deanna and I, but Sloan, tell us about you. You're on Instagram. You're like famous.
I would not say that, although I was recently recognized at a CVS. So let me tell you, that was the most surreal moment of my life, because this girl, she kind of like came up to me and she goes, "Are you Sloan Steele?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "I follow you on Instagram." And, oh no, she didn't say I follow you on Instagram. She goes, I'm a fan. And I was like, "Oh my God, thank you so much." Like, I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so everyone, because she didn't say I follow you on Instagram, so everyone around me in line is looking at me, and I'm like in sweatpants with like a messy bun. Like, I am not. And everyone's looking at me like, should we know who this girl is? And I was just like, and then I acted like I was like Angelina Jolie. I was just like, no one look at me. Like, it was so absurd. I've never run out of a place faster in my life.
Wait, Sloan, do you ever have friends who introduce you as, this is my friend, like you're meeting new people for the first time, and they're like proud of you and like what you've like accomplished online, and they're like, "This is my friend Sloan, and she's got like a really amazing Instagram and her handle," and like you're like, "I'm right here," and I'm extremely embarrassed.
It's so bad when someone's like, "She makes memes." I want to crawl into a hole. And like, please don't tell anyone this is what I do. Like, it embarrasses me into my core, which I guess I should be proud of it, but I'm not. I'm like, this is horrifying. Please don't introduce me as such. I'm a writer. I do other things. I'm a mom. I'd rather you introduce me as like a turnip, like anything but a meme maker. Like, please don't say that. It's so painful. I feel like I'm like a 14-year-old like kid, and I'm like, yeah, I make memes in my mom's basement.
Was that the first time you've been recognized at the CVS experience?
That was the first, and hopefully probably the last.
Oh, it's not.
It's not. Yeah.
Have you guys been recognized?
Well, Frances, I'm sure Frances got a billboard in the city in which she worked.
Now, granted, I do have a billboard.
Awesome.
I do radio, and radio now has a lot of images that are involved with social media. So people do recognize me. By the way, that billboard, Sloan, my listeners paid for. I begged for like 8 weeks for them to pay.
Oh my God, that's amazing. You crowdsourced a billboard?
I totally did, because my bosses wouldn't pay for it. But I think my number one, there's 2 times I can remember where I've been recognized. Once I was at a Garth Brooks concert, because I love Garth Brooks. And I went into the men's restroom because I refused to wait in the women's line. And I'm standing in there with a bunch of angry cowboys. And,
oh my God.
And this other girl goes in and she's like, Skip. And I'm like, yep, I just ran into somebody in the men's bathroom. The other time was at Target. It's always at Target. And my child, she has really long hair and she was riding on the under part of the cart. And I was like, listen, you can ride under there, but if your hair gets tangled up in those wheels, I don't want to hear you complain. And then right then I hear, hi, Skip.
And you're like, I'm a good mom, I swear. That's so horrible.
Natural consequences. Deanna got on a plane and you were stuck with somebody. Talk about awkward.
You know what's interesting? Like this goes to show you like how infrequent I'm actually dressed like a human being. Like I never wear my makeup, and I'm one of those people where like without makeup I look like I'm terminally ill or something is really, really wrong. So
by the way, look up and smile right now because I have you on video, so we're gonna take a picture.
Oh God!
So we can document it. It's okay, Sloan.
God.
We look little.
Okay, so I'm so shiny right now.
No, the first time somebody recognized me, Sloan, I think I might have told you this because Sloan and I had our baby. She had a baby boy and I had a baby girl, and a couple months apart, right? Anyway, the first time I was recognized was about a few hours after I gave birth, and it was from my labor and delivery nurse. And she came in to introduce herself, and then she walked out, and then she came back and she was like, are you a hilarious humanitarian? And there's no place I could go, but basically I wanted to like roll off the bed and into like a fetal position and just like disappear. And then
all of you,
and I'm still buds with her. And then usually people, so the reason why I say I look different is because she didn't recognize me. She recognized my baby because I put a picture on Instagram and she recognized the like blanket and the hat that Micah was wearing.
So your baby's famous.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah. And then the second time it happened was on a plane to Mexico. My brother was getting married and they didn't recognize me. They recognized my husband because my husband looks like Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park. So.
She's made all of her family famous.
Yeah, except for Deanna. Deanna, everyone's famous but you somehow?
Yeah, and I'm not kidding. Tessa's next, my dog. I'm sure they'll recognize. But me, it's like, no, it's a crapshoot. My hair changes every day. I never wear makeup. And so, oh well.
Well, now that you've gotten to know a little bit about us and the awkwardness that has created this bond that is already clearly awesome, which by the way, you two have known each other. I've known Sloan for like 5 minutes, but I feel like we've bonded. We want to jump into something called attachment. Now, Deanna, I can't lie. I'm a little excited. I get to nerd out a bit.
Go ahead, man. I was like, I need to brush up on the attachment theories, but you're going to help me out.
Right.
I remember
I'm going to give you the crash course.
I'm excited.
You learn about this going through school, but I worked in foster care, and obviously kids that are removed from their homes and in foster care, they experience a lot of issues that have to do with attachment. Now, attachment issues can come up not just in being removed from families, but also if you have, like, let's say a parent that is an addict, and so taking care of that child is not first and foremost. Perhaps you have a parent who is suffering from postpartum depression or extreme poverty. Sometimes the immediacy of attending to a child, it's not met as quickly as it should be. So attachment has to do with that feeling of having your needs met. And it starts in childhood with something as simple as, do you pick up the baby when the baby cries?
Right.
Well, I'm sure all three of us are parents. We've heard a lot about, let the baby cry it out. Don't let it cry it out. You're going to spoil it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody has an opinion on that. But when you take it steps further, and then children learn or learn not to depend on people. So you take those attachments forward and you kind of end up with 4 different ones. A secure attachment looks like a child who has a strong like home base. They did a study of this. They put a kid in a room with their parent, and the parent leaves, and then they watched what happened with the kid. Or you think of when you take your kid to the playground, like they go out and they try some stuff and they come back to mom or dad. Does that make sense? They have a secure home base. They know mom or dad's going to be there, or their attachment figure, they're safe.
In fact, a couple days ago, we were at the park and I was watching my daughter. My husband and I were standing there and I was like proudly watching her, like taking her surroundings. And this is a new park. And she was like exploring all the like things on the playground. And she would look back at us, maybe she didn't really even look back at us like too much, maybe like once, twice, and just kind of like give us like a little nod. And then she would go further out.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then explore. And I told my husband, I'm like, look at her. She's got a secure attachment because she felt safe in her world to know I can go out and explore, because I know that the safety net of my parents, they're going to be there when I'm done exploring. I get to go back. And
oh my God, I'm like tearing up. My baby's he's about to be a year old. So like thinking about him, like looking back at me being like, I'm okay, Mom. I know you're there for me. Like breaks my heart.
Okay. Like, see, this is important. This is important because also in development, there's, when kids get around, 8 or 9 months, they start to have stranger danger, like separation anxiety. And some of that stuff is normal, but it's how you handle it. Now, if you fast forward, let's say that a child has not had a situation where they feel particularly attached, if you will.
This episode's going to break my heart because I just can't imagine I don't like living in a world where children don't feel safe and comfortable at all times. And you live in that world, which is that is kudos to you. I don't know how you can do that. It's incredible that you did it.
Well, it's impossible to get it right 100% of the time. And so we definitely don't want to like go forward saying, man, if your kid's messed up already, you're screwed. Yeah. The reality is it's important to know what your attachment style is so that you know how to maybe correct some behaviors or to continue the good ones with your own kids and with your own relationships.
Right. And exactly. So like, and we'll talk about this later in this episode, but Frances had all three of us, we did a test that, we'll let our followers know how to take it themselves. And basically you find out what your attachment style is. And what was interesting is I took it in the mindset of how I was when I was single and I was going through like a lot of emotional stuff that was not healed yet. And then I took it in the mindset of how I am now after doing a lot of like interpersonal work and personal work. And it changed. And so I think it's really empowering to know, like, you can use your history as a compass and feel empowered by it, even if it is a painful one. You're not stuck there. And like, how empowering to know that. But we got to kind of know where to start. And so it's like a good gauge to understand like these different theories of attachments and kind of find where we all fall. That way we can just work on the parts that need healing and then move forward to a more secure attachment to our loved ones and ourselves, really.
So if you take that same situation we were talking about where maybe a kid is in this particular example of like being out at the playground, an anxiously preoccupied child is going to have this sense of like clinginess, having like that inability to really feel like that they can cope, that they can go out and be safe in their surroundings because they don't know for sure how in tune their caregiver is.
Right. And wouldn't that come from like maybe an example of a kid whose parent is not engaged or
too engaged?
Right. Because then you're not building the confidence that it takes to branch out and be independent. So there's this funky dynamic of like codependency, which just breeds a whole lot of anxiety. Yeah. By the way, a lot of anxiety. So I had to bust out, the tiny hands.
The tiny feet.
We had the tiny hands, little plastic tiny hands. This is, by the way, Sloan, when I get anxious myself, I take these out. I'm very weird. I know.
That is so creepy looking, but I respect it and I appreciate it. So it's fine.
What I did was I added tiny feet.
I love it.
We'll put those
Whatever
up.
Works for you. That's what I say.
Yeah. Oh, right. Hey, that's why we started with like an idea of warning you that this is going to be real. We are getting into the clinical stuff, but we have Sloan here. We're going to be giving this a fun take on it, but we want to make sure that people understand what we're talking about. So like an anxiously attached one, I mean, this was me. This is, are parents going to be there? Are they not going to be there? Are they going to be late? Are they dead on the side of the road somewhere? I'm going to be clingy. But what ends up happening is you get so clingy, people are like, God, just fucking leave me alone. And so you set the stage for them shutting the door at school and running. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So wait, can I ask you, I don't know if like we want to get this personal, but what do you think happened when you were very young in like your formative years that made you develop anxiety? Like I know as a Jewish woman, I was born with it, but like did something
Same.
happen to you? Is that what happened? Like I don't know where it stems from. I just always had a fear of death from a young age.
I know for me, looking back, a lot of it had to do with very inconsistent meeting of my emotional needs. I was already pre-programmed to be anxious. My oldest child is too, but then it was very dismissed and like, I mean, we'd get left places. We weren't neglected in the traditional sense, but like, if you don't know, is mom coming to get me at 3:00 or 8:00? You know,
That's
like
so,
that
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. I know.
So yeah, I mean, that's something that, you know, and so to bring that forward, I've had to really recognize that need to be a helicopter parent and pull back because I don't want my kids to perpetuate that. So that's that kind of anxious, preoccupied thing. Now you can go the other part. And that's where people can become like avoidant and dismissive. I don't need anybody. Relationships are for losers. I got this under control. And that
sounds like
every man I've dated.
It's interesting because like when my mom died, I feel like a switch went off. My attachment just got really funky and I turned into this.
Yeah. And I think we kind of move through this. So it's this idea of, they explain it in what I was reading as being Wolverine or like the desperado cowboy icon where you're like, I don't need anybody. I got this. And when there's a fear of someone leaving, hey, I'm going to leave you. Hey, we're going to get divorced or whatever. They're like, well, I don't care. I'm fine. I'll be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is one of them.
Real quick. Okay. So in the context of like my mom dying, I went through this weird, it's not weird to me, but like, it was like a grief reaction where it was like, I know what it feels like. My mom and I were really close and I knew what it felt like to have my mom die. She was my best friend. I couldn't have ever imagined life without her. And so I couldn't fathom the idea of loving somebody and having death rip us apart. I didn't want to feel that loss ever again. So I went for 5 years just like being the, wild auntie to all my friends' kids. And I was like the fun aunt. And it's like, I don't need anybody. I don't want any
people kind of arm's length away, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't necessarily from like, what's interesting, it wasn't necessarily my attachment from my childhood. It was like attachment from the time my mom got sick until the time my mom died and how I interpreted life and then kind of move forward.
And I think we're kind of just giving like a broad, we don't want anybody to like self-diagnose, but just to kind of give an idea. And I think also too, like you said, you go through different points in life where these things will change. Chronic illness does have a very interesting effect on the people with whom that person is related. I mean, in my situation, my mom first told me she was going to die when I was 8. She told me she was going to die, and she died when I was 33. So there was a lot of like, you know what I mean? Always like, oh, this is the time. So,
I could not have imagined that at all.
Oh yeah, it pretty much sucked.
Yeah.
But just this idea though, of I got to keep people away because it's not safe to let them in. And there's also this ability to kind of shut down. So moving forward, there's also, there's disorganized versions where it's kind of like, I love you, I hate you, come close, go away.
Mm-hmm. The push-pull.
Yeah, very push-pull. So a lot of these things, again, you can't go back and change the way you were raised, but part of this is just kind of having an understanding and a little compassion for yourself. So here's where we jump in. Sloan, you've been sitting there.
I'm just like, I'm loving this like lesson of like, this is so fascinating to me. Human development is just it's so crazy and it's so interesting. It's just wild to hear. We're 3 women with such like different backgrounds, but it's like these sort of 4 things and like it applies to all of us at some point in our life, I feel like. And it's just so interesting how we like either move through them or we're stuck in one area for a while and how we process it and grow. Like, it's just fascinating. I was just sitting here like a little, like I was in school. It was awesome.
And that's what I meant by like kind of nerding out on this is I love this stuff.
Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to point out though, you just gave it away for yourself. You are of a growth mindset, meaning you're talking about how you grow and change. The reality is people sometimes consciously or subconsciously make decisions to stay very stuck.
Yeah.
In these things.
I mean, I might have said that, but I've probably been stuck in many of those little boxes for a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
But
I do try to always sort of like take inventory in myself and be like, where am I? Where do I need to go? And how do I get there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think part of parenting is you have to like really look at it.
Oh yeah, parenting. I mean, I used to have, and this is kind of off topic, but
we never do that, by the way.
No meandering. I have generalized anxiety disorder. I had panic attacks so bad I was literally like Baker acted. Like it was a really rough time a few years ago. I mean, I thought I was going to kill myself because I was like, there's no end in sight. Like I felt like the world was crumbling. And I got to tell you, since I've had a baby, it takes you so out of yourself. Like you really have to actually come and check in with yourself because you're so removed, or at least that was my experience, that I haven't had any panic attacks. I haven't had anxiety, which is so weird because you would think as a new mom, you're just a ball of nerves. And it forced me to chill out so that I could like focus on taking care of this new life that's been given to me to like protect.
Which is
so weird.
Well, and what I think, and I'm not, I guess I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit. You describe it as it was just kind of a natural thing and like a oh duh moment. Of course, you're going to come out of yourself to focus on your kid. The reality is that sometimes that's not the case.
Yeah.
And so then that's where some of these things kind of perpetuate. Now, knowing that about you, I have anxiety. I also have OCPD, which is like obsessive compulsive personality disorder. I'm like anxious and I need things a certain way. And, and you have to be aware of that so that you don't pass off too much of your crazy on your kids.
Oh, I'm going to pass off so much crazy on this poor kid. Oh, it's over for him already.
You weren't here for this episode with Mommy Needs a Coffee, but we all agreed we're going to fuck our kids up a little bit. We just try not to do it too much.
You have to.
It gives them character.
Yeah.
I've never met one person that doesn't have some kind of fucked up relationship with at least one parent in their life.
Right.
But that's just the way it goes. Even when you have a loving, healthy family, like your parents are still screwing you up. I used to have a boyfriend in high school. I loved him. He was so close with his family. I would be at their house every single night. We played Jeopardy. We have dinner together. What? Every time they were like a picture perfect family, but every time he walked through the door, his mom, who was from Israel, would say, "Oh, Jody, you're the most handsome boy in the world. No one will ever compare to you. You're the most handsome, perfect boy I ever see in my life." And it's like, okay, like he's never going to be able to have like a successful relationship with any woman, like ever. Right. Like you realize what you're doing, right? And she didn't. But so even though there's all this love behind it, it's like you're setting him up for failure.
Right. And I think that's a really good point is like, we think that don't get me wrong. Good God, like I don't even know the word. You all know I can't even, like, I'm getting tongue tied at the sheer thought of trying to explain how much I love my child. Right. How much that's where I was trying to go with this. And it was literally getting tongue tied, but I've seen those moms before, just like you were describing. And it's like in their head, it's like, no, it's just, I love them. And so I'm expressing this to them. And it's like, you're not giving them room. Mm-hmm. Or like a chance this is not a picture of like what life actually looks like. Yeah. Because people aren't going to fall to their knees saying, "Oh my God, you're so beautiful." And honestly, like I don't know him.
Okay, was he cute? No, time out.
Right?
Was he
so handsome? He's he's an actor now, and he was so cute. He was a beautiful in high school. He was the most beautiful boy. I mean, he was so popular, and I was crazy about him. And he's still my friend. He's a great guy. He's actually engaged, so maybe it will work out.
Yeah.
But she worships the ground he walks on.
She must. I mean, I got to tell you though, I do whisper to my son all the time. I'm like, no woman will ever love you like I do. I set that in his mind, so he always stays with me. Like I want him to be just a 45-year-old man living at home. Like I want that.
I know.
Is that wrong?
Please work on that before he becomes old enough to understand.
I think everyone else will stop me from doing that, but I do. I promise to let him fly, but I do. I mean, I love him so much.
Yeah.
He is the best.
You know, speaking of parenting styles and what we say to our kids to foster secure attachments and whatnot, I don't know if this fits, but something that my parents would bring up to me a lot and I miss, it wasn't really so much, my dad's proud of me and he loves me, but my mom would always tell me how proud she was of me. And it wasn't like I was like eating dirt, you know, and she's like, oh, I'm proud of you, you know, like I think that it warranted something, but like even on times, like I remember I got in trouble in 8th grade about something really stupid. I'm not even going to waste anyone's time about telling the story, but my mom saw how like I stood up for myself and I did it like in a polite way. And it was actually towards a teacher. There was like a principal teacher parent conference type thing. And we walked out of there. My mom was just like, I'm really proud of how you handled yourself in there. And I'm really proud of how you verbalized what you were feeling. And she didn't say whether I was like right or wrong. I don't think that was the point. It's just being mindful of the things that we do tell our kids, you know, and that to me really helped with my confidence and feeling like I was capable of going out into the world and exploring and, you know, because I felt like I did have a safety net with my parents.
Look at what a lasting impression it made. Like you still think about that too.
Right. Oh, till this day, I still think about it. Yeah. Yeah. And I pass it along to my daughter. You know, I always tell her how proud I am of her. And she's like, what? I don't even speak words yet. You know?
My parents never told me they were proud of me. Like my dad is constantly like, still making me work for that. And it's usually weight based, which is like super fucked up. It's like we can have a whole nother issue on this, but like it is so important to like really tell your kids like, hey, I'm proud of you, not for eating dirt and not to foster that like everyone's special, but like when they do something that you're like, hey, I'm really proud of you for this. You've taken like what I've taught you to heart and you're doing it and you're putting it into action. Like that's so important.
Okay. So I have to ask this question now that we have this basic understanding of what attachment looks like in relationships, because you just said something and you reminded me of this epiphany moment I've had in the last couple of weeks. So you're always chasing your dad's approval.
Mm-hmm.
How did that play out in your dating life?
Oh my God. When I was younger.
What kind of guys did you date?
All guys that like had something similar to my dad, of course, like whether it was like as creepy as looks or it was, they have like a drive for success. I've always liked guys that I never liked like the punk rock musician type people. I always liked guys that
I was lined up for those bad boys.
I never liked the bad boys. I always liked guys that would really like look like they would take care of their family even at like 22 years old, which is like kind of a weird thing to sort of look for. But I've never dated bad people ever. I have personally jumped in too fast in a relationship or gone too fast sexually to sort of get their approval of, hey, like I'm the cool chick. It's always me trying to prove myself. Oh, what does this guy want? And how can I be that? Like I would mold myself. Yeah, right. Oh, I'm like very like sexy or seductive or like, oh, I'm like Zoe Deschanel. I'm so quirky. Like it would always be, I didn't know who I was because my dad was always telling me I wasn't enough. And like in high school, I went through this phase where I loved wearing a knit cap, like a knit beret. Like I wore it all the time. And he would always be like, you look like you should have dreadlocks and smell like shit. And I would be like, then I must become a hippie because that's what you hate. And that's what I'll be just to prove. And then I went like so deep into like this sort of like hippie persona. And like when that didn't work, I would be like, okay, now I'm going to be this cool, laid back, sexy, like very French chick. And it was like, I was always hopping from personality to personality, trying to find myself.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more me than the guys. The guys I always dated were actually pretty great. It was me trying to mold myself to what they wanted.
Just still not feeling like you're enough, just as you are.
Yeah, no, like definitely I'm not enough and I will never be. I still feel, and I have an amazing marriage to an amazing person, and I still feel that way all the time. I can't shake it. And he's always like, I'm not your dad. I love you. You. I don't love the wild Sloan. I don't love funny Sloan. Like I love Sloan. And it's like, I can't hear that. Like I don't process it.
Like
I'm
weird.
yeah, it's like weird. And it's like you're lying to me. And he's, I've been with you for 11 years. Like, do you not trust me when I tell you that I love you? Like, you're the mother of my child. I'm like, no. I
Nice
don't
try.
believe you. Nice try, buddy. You're gonna pull one over me. Yeah, I'm a crazy person to this day.
So
is what I've learned.
So am I, which Deanna's helping me with.
I am helping you, but it's so weird. I can help Frances, I can help friends, but I'm still a disaster myself. You know, like I think I've done a lot of work, but in listening to what you're talking about, I feel like I'm safe talking about my dad a little bit, because as much as he's like, he actually does ask me questions like, how's the podcast going? Which is unheard of.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Because usually, unless he's talking to my brother about like how many goals my brother scored in his soccer tournament, my dad doesn't care. You know, he loves me, but he's just like, I just don't know what to talk about other than like farting and
how's the weather.
Yeah. And growing up, I knew what was consistent. My dad was very protective of me, and are not very protective of me, but this stayed with me forever. We didn't really talk too much about relationships, but I remember in high school, he would be like, so you got a new boyfriend. Does he treat you well? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, I just want you to know, if he ever puts his hands on you, I'm like, he never did put his hands on me. You know what I mean? But he was just like, if he ever hurts you, I will kill him. And even though that's really like intense to say to your 14-year-old who like just went to see Titanic and that was about it with her new boyfriend, it did something for me that made me feel like protected by my dad. You know, oh, okay, so men shouldn't treat me bad. I know it sounds like kind of weird.
No, what's weird about it?
Yeah,
it's not weird, but like
good.
It's sad. It's sad. I guess it's sad to me when I reflect back on like, it's so powerful to hear those words. Why can't we just all know naturally that like people aren't supposed to treat us poorly, you know? But growing up, my brother was a star athlete, very handsome, prom king when he didn't even want to be prom king. Like this is a true story. Super brilliant, super smart. Like everything he touches turns to gold, you know? And he's very, very successful to date, you know? And my dad, I know, feels very proud that's his son, you know? And growing up, like I danced. I was super into like hip hop dancing, did like competitive dancing and whatnot. And my dad, I don't know, he never came to a practice of mine. And like, if he did come to a recital, like I'm sure he was like snoring in the audience somewhere. With my brother and soccer, like he's all about it. So growing up, I have always kind of like sought recognition and acknowledgement of the things that I am doing, and I still do it till to date, and it annoys the piss out of me. I really wish I wasn't always like seeking validation. Like I'm confident, but I'm just always doing this. So today I posted something on Instagram and the meme got like 100,000 likes. How do you like that? You know, or like just anything, just to be like, oh, that's cool, Deanna. And like, it's just still like kind of crickets. Okay, well, who's playing Barcelona next? You know, who's in the soccer match? And I'm like, yeah.
But fortunately, what's cool is you've been able to, again, when we're going back to working through it, you found yourself in a secure relationship where you have somebody that provides you with that validation. And
yes,
so you can recognize that now.
Yes. And what I wanted to just add real quick is I also like saw my parents' marriage, and my mom was always like the giving and thoughtful one, and always like presents and doing. And my dad, although he like loved her, he was very lazy, and he'll admit that. No thoughtfulness, no like card, no present, no nothing. And so up until I met my husband, I mimicked, I repeated that. Like I found guys that like didn't give me a whole lot of recognition, but loved me and like treated me okay, but just not enough, kind of emotionally vacant in a weird way. And so it wasn't until I took my 6-month hiatus and said, enough is enough. I need to figure this shit out. And now I'm with a man who like treats me like gold. And buys me presents and is thoughtful and remembers it's Valentine's Day. Like, it's total role reversal. Now I'm like, what? It's our anniversary? Oh shit. You know, when I was dating prior to my husband, like, in the time, I'm very complicated. Like, I'm a mixed bag. You never know what to really expect of me. But the relationships that I decided to like give it a go, especially prior to my mom dying, where I was like, yeah, I want to get married and do this and do that. I was always like the caregiver and the thoughtful one, just like my mom was. And it would breed a lot of resentment in me. Eventually I would wake up one day and just be like, what the fuck? Like, why am I doing everything for you? I never do. Like, what the hell? Like, I literally prepared you that my birthday was next month and just write me a card. And then like my birthday would come and there would be no card, you know? And it's like, dude, you just expecting so little and still not getting anything. And I met my husband and, like I said, total role reversal. I've got like a shoebox filled with like the most thoughtful cards I've ever received in my life from him. And yeah, like, I mean, to the point where I'm like, okay, babe, we're on a budget. I know a holiday is coming up. And I'm like, no presents. And I'm fucking serious. If you do the thing that most women do, you know, we don't listen to that. We go, no presents. And then we show up with like a PlayStation for them.
Right.
Like, seriously.
Oh
don't.
shit. I'm a bad wife. I've never done that before. I'm like, I literally looked, okay, I hope my husband doesn't listen to this. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but over Christmas time, I wanted to make sure I was getting a new computer. So I like looked through my husband's text message just with my sister because she was going to give me her laptop. And I was like, okay, sure. So I like looked through and he was like, hey, Paige, like, don't worry about bringing a laptop. Like, I ordered Sloan a MacBook Pro. I'm also going to get her these shoes. And it was like this gorgeous pair of Charlotte Olympia shoes, like my favorite designer. And I was like, holy shit, motherload. And I'm such a goddamn bitch that on Christmas morning, when all I got was a MacBook, I was fucking pissed.
Oh, no.
I got him 5 pairs of underwear. That was it. From Nordstrom Rack. And I was mad. He kept opening up the underwear and he was like, oh, it's more underwear. It's like the most absurd. I'm like, I'm a fucking bitch, man. I'm sorry to curse so much, but I am. Thoughtful guy. He's like Dan and Paul are very similar dudes. They're thoughtful. And I'm just like, I no longer am a thoughtful wife.
He's enabling you.
Maybe you're going to go through phases, you know, new baby, all that.
Yeah.
So, Sloan, when you were talking about chasing approval, and then this was the same thing that was coming from Deanna's story, I had this moment of kind of, man, doing self-work sucks sometimes.
It does.
When you come face to face with something and you're like, oh, I can't even fake like I don't even know anymore. So I realized when I was younger, I dated the bad boys because I always thought, well, if I date someone, like if I'm here and I date someone kind of like here a little below me, they're going to realize what a great catch they have and they'll never leave me or hurt me. Ask me how many times that worked. So then moving forward, when I became a little bit older, I switched and I did this very distinct switch where it was stable guys that were emotionally unavailable. If they were tall and nerdy and emotionally available, I was all over that. Both of my ex-husbands, yes, Sloan, both.
Girl, I'm sorry, girl. That's hard.
You know what? Is what it is. But they were both computer geniuses, creepily alike in that way. But I realized I was constantly chasing approval from people. And this went forward into dating after being divorced and whatnot. Constantly chasing approval from people I knew were never going to give me accolades. And this goes back to my childhood because the way I kind of stood out in a family of 6 was I was the smart one. I was the overachiever. I still am, but I do it for a very different reason. But I'm like, look at me, please look at me, you know, like the billboard that we did. Pretty awesome. You want to know how many family members have said anything about the billboard?
Your family again. I'm just
no, listen, I love them, but I understand them now and I'm not bashing on them. And God, fuck, if someone listens, like, oh, I'm going to call Frances.
But what if
family.
I'm bashing on them? No, I just get protective. I get protective of my friend because I'm like, but why not say anything?
But there are times though when I know they're proud. The thing is, I know my dad is proud of me in certain ways, but I know he's not emotionally available to like have a conversation about my feelings and to validate my experience. I know that's just the family I grew up in. The problem was I then sought that out in the men that I was trying to have relationships with. Please notice me. Hey, by the way, I do radio and I'm a real good therapist and now I teach. And then can somebody please pay attention to me? And it's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
So moving, yeah. So what I've learned in my last couple of years is to create like, people in the LGBT community call it your family of choice. And those are the ones that where you kind of have corrective behaviors. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Deanna's a corrective behavior for me in a lot of ways. She's a corrective experience, even with her little tiny feet. God knows what she's doing right now in the video.
I was like, how tiny are her feet? Then I forgot she's literally holding tiny feet.
Right. But it's just that like empowered kind of supportive, proud thing. And I have that with a lot of my really good friends. But I realized it recently with dating that I just stopped. I realized I wanted to like reach out to this person and be like, hey, guess what I did? Like, this is really awesome. And I realized it's not going to fucking matter.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm the asshole for constantly putting this person in the position to let me down over and over again because they are just doing everything they have always done. And I'm expecting them to be different.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And we put a lot of pressure on, it's like we're trying to get the people we date to like reparent us.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that weird?
True. Yeah. No, it's 100% true though.
Yeah. And so when people jokingly say, like, oh, she has daddy issues or mommy issues, I mean, we can pass those off as whatever. Look, it ain't just strippers that have daddy issues.
Oh my God. I have the worst daddy issues. So I'm starting with a new therapist next month and she called me to sort of like get my background. And I said to her, I'm like, let me save you some time. I'm a privileged white girl and I have basically every single thing that comes with being a privileged white girl, like complaints about money, complaints about my father, complaints about my mother. I'm like, that's just me in a nutshell. Just an asshole. Like I'm an asshole person and I should have nothing to complain about. Yet I can't lose weight because I was bulimic my freshman year of college. And when my dad picked me up from the airport, he hugged me and said, this is the best you've ever looked. And I was like, I'm literally dying. And I was like, bones. It was so, I think about that like almost every day and I'm like stuffing my face with sriracha peas. Like, I don't deserve to be thin.
No.
I lost weight when I moved out. And then like I got it triggered an eating disorder. Cause of course being like OCD, I was really good at doing my diet.
Oh, sure.
And it wasn't until somebody overseas died of anorexia because my dad's an immigrant. And then he like saw me and like got worried about what I look like. I am pretty healthy now. I would like to say I am a full 35 pounds heavier than I was then. And 35 pounds on 5'7" is a lot of weight.
Oh, I'm literally 50 pounds overweight and I'm 5'6". Like it doesn't look, luckily I'm very evenly distributed. So it's like kind of not that noticeable, but it's like, for me, I'm huge.
Right. And you're looking at it that way, but it was like, so to going to that moment where it was like, this is the best you've ever been. And like, I'm dying, or where it was like, oh, so you notice someone else, it became real when it was outside of us and now it's here. So these are like real things to think about and not to put pressure on parents, but really think about your interactions with your children.
I mean, that's so true, but I feel like in a way it's good for us because I'm going to be so cognizant of what I say and the weight and effect it has on, my child or my future children. Everything you say carries weight, no pun intended, but it carries weight to your children. You need to really choose your words carefully because you don't know what you're going to say. Like Deanna had something that her mom said when you were 8 years old that stuck with you. Like my dad said this like a few years ago and I replay it in my head almost every day of my life. Like you have to choose your words carefully with your children. That's just like the bottom line. So hopefully we will do better in that aspect. I think also, as parents, it's hard. I see now how it would be hard for our parents to like, you don't want something to be wrong with your child. So it's like almost you don't want to recognize it and you don't want to acknowledge it because maybe it'll go away or it won't be real. So I feel like that's where a lot of that stuff is coming from. So when your dad like saw someone else dealing with it, he was like, okay, I can't ignore this thing.
Right.
But it's so difficult. I mean, I guess, you know, their generation, like our parents' generation, like everyone's doing the best they can.
Exactly.
We know a little bit more though.
Right.
So hopefully we'll do more.
I always say like, it's your personal responsibility to be at least a little bit better than the generation that you came from. Like,
I like that. Say that one more time, because that's good.
Oh man, you're putting me
It's
on
your
the spot.
personal responsibility to be
Your personal. Okay, I got this. I believe that it is everyone's personal responsibility to be at least a little bit better than the generation that we came from.
really, really real.
And I would also like to say something that as somebody with the name Deanna, okay, and I have been a bigger girl, like big. I don't even like the word big bone. That doesn't make sense. We all have really the same size bones. I come from big people. So like growing up, I'd be told, you know, big D. I also had huge boobs in high school and had a breast reduction. And so that was like, I was just like always being called big. So obviously then I had like a lot of like insecurities, you know, thankfully I didn't go through any kind of eating disorders, but always had like a lot of insecurities and yada, yada, yada. Well, now that I'm in a very like secure, safe relationship, I feel recovered from most of my issues. The other night I took my husband's phone and I was naked and I like put myself in the most horrific, like horrendous like position. And it's not even horrific. It's my body, right? So I got to embrace my body. But I purposely put myself in the most unattractive position ever. And then I took a selfie of just like a headless, floppy body. And then I put,
I can't see it.
And then I put the picture as his cell phone wallpaper.
I love you so much.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to change it back to my baby, but I do love it.
Yeah. And actually his cell phone wallpaper was of our baby. And then I changed it to just like floppy boobs and like rolls upon rolls of just like skin and flab. And I was crying, like laughing, like just waiting. I was just like, oh, this is so exciting, waiting for him to see it. You know?
That's like, I hate when people like when Lena Dunham takes off her clothes and they're like, she's so brave. Like, I hate that. But like, girl, that is brave. Like, I would not be able to like, it's like we're sitting Shiva in my house because we don't have mirrors right now. Like, I haven't looked in a full length mirror in so long. And like, when I've like walked past a reflection, I literally am like, monster. It's so scary.
Okay.
So like to do that sounds like, it's like the most beautiful thing to me to be able
I
to
think so too. I pull up my like my shirt and I'll jiggle my stomach like violently and be like, look, Micah, it's a waterbed.
I mean, our babies love us because we're cushy.
Yeah. And no, my husband does this really cute thing where like if I start talking crap about myself, he goes, hey, you don't talk about my wife like that.
Aww. I love him.
You know, I read this thing the other day that really resonated with me, and I'm going to butcher it, but it was basically like, you talk to yourself more than anyone else. Like, be nice.
Yeah.
I like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm the meanest person to me, and I'm like, why am I such a horrible person to myself? Like, and of course no one else will like me if I'm this way. So like, that's probably why I seek validation on Instagram.
One of the things that I work with on clients, and it was just kind of something I learned when going through my own therapy, is I have them identify somebody that they would not be mean to, someone they care about. For me at the time, it was my niece who's 9 years younger than me. And I would be like, would I say this to my niece? And the answer was absolutely no. And when I thought about it more, like the things I would say to myself, I would not ever, 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 ever say to my niece. And I took it one step further and I would realize I wouldn't even say that to someone I don't like.
Yeah.
Like, this is so horrible. like this would just rip them to shreds, but I'm saying it to myself on a regular basis. So once I started through that filter, it worked for me. And I found with clients, that's really kind of helpful.
Great. I swear to God, I'm going to try to start putting that into practice. Cause like, I have got to be nicer to myself. Like my body just did an amazing thing. This podcast is like, you guys, this is like legit therapy session. I'm like feeling,
I don't know if you know this, but we're kind of professionals.
You guys are. I'm like going to be like crying. I'm going to be like journaling tonight.
Oh.
But seriously, like, yeah, you have to be nice to yourself. And I think that goes to like relationships too. Like one of the questions I got was, I don't know if you guys want to get into questions.
Yeah, go ahead. Bring it up if it makes sense.
It does make sense, but now I'm going to have to like find it. And I feel bad that it's going to take a second. I should have had this.
Actually, while you're looking at that, that does remind me of something. Two things. One, something that I've kind of heard once is like people learn how to treat you by seeing how you treat yourself. So if you're always bagging on yourself, then they're going to think it's okay. And then, but the flip side to this is like a fixable behavior. I had an interaction. First of all, you guys talking about you just gave me some real talk because all you guys talking about all this body embracement and just, this is awesome. I'm horrified of the next man that sees me naked.
Why?
You're beautiful. No. That's crazy.
And I swear to God on all things holy. And by the way, I'm pretty much atheist. But I mean it when I say like, I'm not saying that for attention. I'm just saying like, I'm like, is it going to be daylight? What angle am I going to be at? I'm going to make sure that I'm not going to eat first. That's the kind of craziness. So
no, just
God bless you,
candlelight,
Deanna.
Wear like a Phantom of the Opera, like half body mask and like candlelight and a cape and just be like, okay, like don't put your dick out and I'll just be away from it and ease myself on and you won't have to actually feel my body at all. That's like, I couldn't, you're so brave to do this because like it literally, I wouldn't know how to, Deanna, when I was saying this earlier, like I don't even know how to kiss anymore. Like I wouldn't know how to kiss another guy. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do it anymore. So like you are so brave. Like you are an icon of female empowerment right now.
My life.
You embrace it.
I'm not kidding.
Oh my God.
Okay. By the way, I found the question.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So I don't know the person's, I don't want to say their Instagram handle because it's like a very personal question, but so they said, don't want to be a drag, but this is what I'm currently dealing with. How do I trust again after being in an abusive situation for years and finally getting away? This just kind of reminded me of like being abusive to yourself, but She didn't go into what kind of abuse she suffered, but like, how do you do that? How do you learn to trust again?
It takes relearning. It takes actively wanting to change the cycle that has put you in that pattern.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people that I've worked with that have gone through an abusive relationship, just as Frances says, like it's a lot of reflection. And I really think that people, this is what I love about the whole reflection piece and taking what we've gone through and letting it empower us to do better and be better and seek better, because it doesn't keep us in a box of like pain. We can use the pain and use the experience to be able to recognize red flags, to be able to recognize what's healthy, what's not healthy, what doesn't feel right. Also, when you're in a relationship, but when the time comes, you know, and she or he wants to start dating again, hopefully you'll feel more empowered to like not make excuses for people. You know, oftentimes we'll already feel like we're in too deep. Well, I've already said I love you. You know, like I've done that before. I was in a relationship that was not healthy. I was like, what I said I love you to him. You know,
I can't take that back.
Yeah. Like, what does that mean? That I get to endure like some unhealthy dynamic for now until I die? No, thank you. So it definitely takes time, I would say, to give yourself some space. Try to get to a place where you feel okay being alone, you know, that you're not just trying to fill a void of I'm lonely or I'm bored or I
want someone there.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Like any body is a body. That's not fair to the person you're using.
Right. And it's not fair to you, you know?
Right.
And so I've heard from so many people, clients and friends alike, that being alone can be really uncomfortable. And God, I just say try to work towards that, because I'm like a big pro being alone. Like there is just something so empowering and beautiful and amazing of being alone and feeling totally okay with that, because you have this clarity of like what it is that I want, what I feel I can give to somebody else. And then you enter each relationship like walking towards it in a different mind frame.
I too love being alone. When I broke up with my husband and I have been together for 11 years. We broke up after like 8 years. Is that right? Or maybe 7 years. And we broke up for like a year and a half. I loved being alone so much. Like I would take myself out to the movies. I'd take myself out to dinner. I would go read a book in a park. Like I would enjoy spreading my arms out as far as I could in bed all alone. Like I relished every second of it until I'm not saying it doesn't get lonely, but like you have to just be like, wait, this is so cool. I'm dating myself, which sounds kind of stupid.
It doesn't sound stupid at all, though.
But it helps.
I think it's important to think, like if we want other people to be around us, we probably should be good company on our own. I'm pretty good company. So that's cool.
All the voices in my head keep me company. I don't need nobody else. I'm doing just fine.
And so like, I feel that it's just important to note, like, certainly there are going to be people out there that are like, no, I never want to be in a relationship ever, 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 ever. And they're going to stick to that. And that's fine. And
don't waste other people's time.
Yeah, exactly. Then be open and honest about that and don't play games. But for the people that I'm like kind of speaking to my old self, where it was like, okay, I got to a point where I was really comfortable with being alone. And then I started reflecting, like, I have a lot of love to give. And I would like to be with somebody. I just am unwilling to compromise what that's going to look like. I'm no longer willing to like bend and compromise and be the one that's always nurturing and always caregiving and whatever. I'm not willing to repeat history anymore. And so that is why it wasn't repeated. And I ended up marrying a guy that looks zero, like nothing like any other guy I've ever dated.
Deanna, someone else asked a question that was like, when do you know that you're ready to get married? I'm paraphrasing them, but they said something to the effect of like, there's some certain things that I'm not 100% comfortable with, but it's like, do I just accept that that's who this person is because I love them like on the whole, and do I marry them or should I reevaluate this relationship? And they didn't go into detail like what those things are. Like, are they a drug user, or are they like they beat cats, or like it's like they leave their towel on the floor, which I think that was more of the vibe I was getting. Like there was just maybe minor personality things. So it's like, what do you guys think about that? Like how compatible do you have to be to go to the next step with someone like marriage?
I'm the worst person to ask.
So what didn't work for you?
I think that for me, I just got on a roll.
Yeah.
With some things, like this is the next thing. And
I think that's what they were saying. Like, this is the next step in my relationship, but do I want to take it?
Yeah. And we've done stuff on timelines. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's a lot to that. I mean, are you talking about he smells kind of funny and he doesn't put his towel away? Or are you talking about this guy spends recklessly and doesn't want to have children? I mean, so it's like super.
Yeah, we need some more details.
But I would say that it is really difficult not knowing the details. And like, I'm just thinking about like when we have like new clients that come, it's like really pretty, like, what do you want to work on specifically? Like, so we need details because we need to know what
so specific. Sure.
Exactly. But if it's more like behavioral stuff, like they're a little bit messy and I like everything really pristine, like everything just comes down to such a personal experience, and you just have to be you got to be realistic. I would say try to have obviously a discussion with the person prior to getting married. See what conflict resolution looks like between both of you. See how do they react when you bring them a genuine concern? Do they tell you, stop being crazy, and completely just like dismiss what you're saying? I guess like if I told everybody, this is what really bothers me, and I told 100 people, I have no doubt that some of the shit that bothers me, people would be like, you're stupid, shut up. There's like other things, like bigger things in life. Right. But my husband knows this matters to her. So I want to be able to resolve this, and vice versa. Now, we're certainly not perfect. The bigger stuff, how Frances brought up, like if they have a serious gambling problem, or they're addicted to like, I don't know, they like really, really big stuff. If you're asking me personally, the person who was a commitment phobe and who waited until in my 30s to get married, personally, I wouldn't take the dive. That's just me personally.
I mean, because maybe there's not a need right away other than just the pressure of this is the next thing we're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, I just think, okay, somebody one time said something as therapists. Sometimes you will get really, really frustrated with a client because you're just like, I just want to shake you and be like, stop doing that, just stop it. And they don't, and they're still destructive and self-sabotaging. But then like if you flip it around on yourself and go, when's the last time somebody told you a piece of advice that you just went, oh my God, thanks, and you completely changed your life around?
Change doesn't happen that way.
It doesn't happen that way. It doesn't happen quickly. So if you look at it from the perspective of like your own experience, like how many times have you really changed yourself? I don't know how often you're going to have like results. And so if you then look at, okay, what are the chances of really changing somebody else when they're not invested in changing? Those chances are pretty unlikely to happen. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
We can't just have our head in the sand the whole time to that reality.
So as we're kind of wrapping things up here and going back to what we were talking about, we talked about attachment. We talked about how that's played out in some of our relationships. I think one thing we all agree on is that you have to do the work. So if you recognize, first of all, and secondly, you want to change some of the destructive patterns perhaps that were laid in childhood for you, then you have to do the work. And it's not fun and it's not fast. And I'll give an example. So Sloan, I set up an online account for dating. Deanna and my other therapist friend have my password and are screening applicants.
I think that's amazing. I think that's such a brilliant idea because sometimes you just don't know what you need and it's just the way it goes.
So here's how it's been playing out. There's been like one that's made the cut, right?
Wait, I'm so sorry. Quick question. Does the guy know this?
I told him last night.
Oh, you did?
Oh.
But the interesting thing is and I don't know how this goes, but he has legitimately, it's like he's in my head saying things that I have said before to people, being honest, being open, being like clearly communicative and in touch with my feelings. He has said almost verbatim the same things back to me, almost in a creepy, like, how does he know to say that? And it happened the first time and I legitimately almost threw up and I immediately texted Deanna.
See?
That's amazing.
Because and then I had to go, why am I? And then he's done it a few times. And I'm like, this guy's being nice to me. Like, Frances, do you really want someone who's being nice to you? Because here you've been chasing it forever and he's being nice to you and you want to vomit.
Yep. And that, you know what, on it, like I kind of talk about like my husband, like it was this easy thing. But I've talked in other episodes. It wasn't. And I was the same. And I warned Frances, I'm like, I'm going to pick you a really nice guy. I intuitively feel like this is going to be, the picker is going to be on point with this one. And I even warned her, I'm like, and then you're going to want to flee. You're going to want to run.
Yeah, it's hard. It's so hard.
You're going to want to run. You're going to want to vomit on yourself. And look, and it's like, from what? Because he's nice, he's communicating, he's listening to you, he's being like an active listener.
Stop already.
Boring. Please be emotionally unavailable. I'm begging you.
Yeah, so I need your approval.
Like, it's so funky. And like Sloan, I don't know if you know this, but after the last guy I dated, before my husband, I took 6 months off and I said to myself, my picker is broken. I need somebody else to pick somebody for me. And that's how I met my husband. My friend hooked me up with my husband because I would have never seen him. And it's not because he's not a good looking guy who had a lot going for himself, because he is. He just was going to be too nice for me. How fucking bizarre is that, right?
It's hard to be with a nice guy. I'm with a nice guy and it's like, you're really nice. What's the catch? I
What's the
always tell
catch?
Paul, I'm like, do you have another family? Like, have you murdered like a bunch of people? Like, when is the other shoe going to drop? When am I going to find out who you really are? I'm like, because no one is smart and funny and handsome and kind and caring and compassionate and great with kids. Like, you can't be all those things. But he's like, yeah, actually, like, it's really easy to be all those things. Like, I'm a good guy. Like, I have good morals.
So the takeaway from this, I think there's one thing is to those nice guys who really, I mean, there's a Green Day song, Nice Guys Finish Last. You have up until a point, but we as women are trying not to be assholes. So please just keep being nice. And as women, we are going to challenge those, like some of us with our issues, those immediate responses, including but not limited to purposely being dull and dry and like boring, like I have been for the last week, in the hopes that he would just go away.
Oh my God, you're doing that. So I wasn't dry and boring. When I met Dan, I tried to scare him away. I'd be like, I've got like $75,000 worth of student loans. So what? Do you love me? Or like, I remember telling him, I don't think I could ever be committed. I want to like have sex with whoever, and I want to kiss whoever. What if I want to go on a crazy vacay by myself and just like make out with whoever? And he was just like, okay, I don't know. Then you're going to do that. And just like the way he said it, I don't know, it was just perfect. Like
he called you on your bullshit.
Yeah, right. Because I didn't really want to do that, but I also wasn't fully ready to accept this unconditional, like, no agenda. He just wanted to love me and like be there for me and support me. And of course I had to question that. But just like you, Sloan, like, where are the bodies hidden?
Yeah, like this is fucking weird.
Like, you are definitely going to skin me and make a dress out of my skin.
Yeah, this isn't right. This isn't right. Like, it's weird. So yeah, you have to let yourself just like be with a nice guy. It's good to have someone there supporting you. It really feels nice.
And men need to be okay with women who are nice, supportive, real women. So I'm not letting men get off or by the way, if you're into men, women, whatever.
Yeah, whatever it is.
We're speaking a more general term, but your partner, let them be the person that you really keep looking for, because they're there. And then when you realize you're bullshit, don't throw up.
I think that's good. It's like, you know, like in like the olden days where they would like exorcise your demons and you would like throw up the bile. Like maybe he's purged you of these emotions, and now you're going to go through a transformation when you're like, I can accept your love, like a real true love. I know it's like your third date, but still.
Which is a really great analogy for a former bulimic.
I mean, honestly, like I've got vomit on the brain. I like really got vomit on the brain. I'm going to try really hard to like eat a little snack and keep it down tonight. Please let me.
So we're already coming to the end of this, which is crazy. But Sloan, thank you. This has been awesome.
I had so much fun.
We want to do the feel good news.
Well, no, real quick. So we took the test that you gave us.
Oh,
like tested.
And what'd you come up with?
Okay, so we took the attachment style test that Frances had us all take. So pre-marriage Deanna was, like I said, I was a mixed bag, very unpredictable. So actually, like, I scored somewhat like equal, like in all parts.
Okay.
It's very strange. So I was like ambivalent and anxious, 13 points, avoidant and dismissive, 12 points, disorganized, 9 points, and secure, 18 points. So like you really never knew what you were going to get. And by the way, that's pretty fucking chaotic. Like to live that life, believe me, it was pretty exhausting. And then, so after a lot of work, and meeting my husband and accepting the love and now being in this relationship that I feel so incredibly secure and supported, it shows like, it was like the pie chart is like 75% secure.
Yay, because you did the work.
I did the work. And you know, it's interesting because I am a really anxious person. The ambivalent and anxious category is a 1, where before it was a 13.
That's insane. All right, how about you, Sloan?
Wow. Okay, so my secure is a 73 point something. My ambivalent anxious is a 16.7, still big. Then my avoidant dismissive, which I'm not that at all, is a 3.3. And then my disorganized is like a 6.7.
I like that. Well, I like that because it's consistent to what you're saying. Like you've got generalized anxiety, but you've said like you're in a very loving, supportive man that buys you a MacBook and then you yell at him for shoes. Okay.
If he listens to this, I'm so fucked because I never said anything about it.
Oh.
Well, but that's good. So you just kept it to yourself and you realize now you're an asshole. At least you didn't start a fight.
Oh, I knew I was oh my God, no, I would never.
Okay.
If I started a fight with him over a pair of shoes, it would be typical, but
but then that's so that's cool though. So you didn't go off on him. So that's
no.
So,
I thanked him profusely, but inside I was raging.
Okay, but you kept it under control because the reality is we can be children inside, but you kept it under control.
I kept it under control.
You're a goddamn adult.
I'm a child adult.
Yep.
So I would have taken the before, but I ran out of time at work today. But this, by the way, this is the new and improved Frances. I am at 26.2% secure.
You'll get to your 70s, I promise.
I am 18% avoidant. I am 24.6% disorganized and a big fat 31.1% ambivalent anxious. So there is work to be done.
Oh, I love you, Frances. You were Deanna. That's where I was. You got some work to do, but
I would have been 95% anxious of ambivalent before. All right. So as we wrap up, good news feed real quick.
Good news feed. Canada just approved a new budget, which gives teens free access to national parks in Canada permanently.
I love that.
How fucking rad is that? So all those of you.
Cute.
Go Canada.
Yeah, go Canada.
I don't know the national anthem, but I do like their maple syrup.
No one does.
And Mounties. So Sloan, where can we find you on Instagram?
You can find me at I am Sloan Steele and also my new Brooklyn business venture at In the Dream Machine.
All right.
So follow me on both of those, please.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. This was so fun.
Thanks, ladies. I loved it.
No, I feel like this was therapeutic.
I feel good. I feel exhausted, but good.
That's how good therapy goes.
I'm going to take a bath and go nights. All right. Bye. Bye,
Good
guys.
night, ladies.
All right. Thank you for listening. You'll catch our next one next week. Please leave us your reviews, 5 stars. I feel like we deserved one on that today. And you can find a hilarious humanitarian, myself, Shut Up Skippy, and also our special Instagram for the podcast, which is Humanitarian Podcast.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Bye. Thanks, guys.
Bye.